Hi, today we're going to be discussing the salaries of medical doctors in the management field in South Africa. And we're going to compare this to doctors in a clinical field. I'm Manithan Ryan, a medical doctor with more than 20 years of experience in the healthcare industry. So let's go ahead and look at these salaries. The salaries of doctors has three aspects to it. One is the rural allowance, the other is the total cost to employer, and finally the overtime. A doctor in management field, that is the medical services field, also is eligible for these allowances. That's the rural and in-hospitable allowance. In my previous episode, if you click the link above, you'd see I've discussed this in detail. But let's go ahead now and look at the occupational specific dispensation categorization of doctors. The occupational specific dispensation, which created a career pathing for doctors. This was negotiated in 2009 and placed doctors in three streams: a general practitioner stream, specialist stream, and a management stream. So today we're going to be looking at the management stream. As you can see, there's a manager medical services grade 1, manager medical services grade 2, a senior manager, and general manager. So the total cost to employer package, the rural or in-hospitable allowance, and the overtime component, which is all based on the 2019-2020 salary, is going to be discussed today. The overtime for doctors is a commuted system whereby you work either group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4. Generally, most of the doctors work group 3, so I'm only going to be discussing the salary and the implications based on group 3 overtime. The total cost to employer for a manager grade 1 is 1,173,900. The overtime category group 3 gives them an overtime salary of 437,055 rands per annum. The gross salary, therefore, is 1,500,130 rands, and the net being 79,401. A manager grade 2 earns 1,342,230, and after adding your overtime of about 499,000, almost 500,000, you get a gross salary of 1,719,813, and your net being 89,073 rands. On the last notch, you move up to a maximum of 1,534,680, and your net being 99,912 rand. A senior manager, usually seen in regional hospitals and tertiary hospitals, even central hospitals, earns 1,512,009 rand, just one notch below the manager grade 2 in a district hospital. The overtime being 562,936, giving you a gross per annum of 1,937,353 rands, and your net being 98,635. The senior manager on the last notch earns 1,834,890. The general manager earns 1,807,776 rand, also one notch below the senior manager on his last notch. Once again, if a general manager opts in for overtime in group 3, the salary for the overtime for the year per annum is 673,053, giving you a gross salary of 2,316,322 rands and a net of 115,293 rands. On the last notch, the general manager would earn 135,210 as a net salary. As I mentioned earlier, you can work in a rural or inhospitable area. So if you're a manager grade 1 in a inhospitable area, you'll end up with 87,000. If you're a general manager in a rural area, you can end up with 150,000. Now let us compare a CEO salary or hospital manager salary to a clinician salary. As I mentioned, the OSD had created an occupational specific dispensation for medical doctors. If you opt out of the medical stream or occupational specific dispensation for doctors and compete for a CEO position in a hospital, your salary will decrease. The OSD, the management levels, are not covered by the occupational specific dispensation, and you would be generally competing with other categories of staff, administrators, CAs, nurses, all compete for the CEO position or hospital manager position. At a district level, the CEO or hospital manager salary is 869,007 rands. This is your total cost to employ. The CEO has the medical manager or manager of medical services reporting to him. This person earns 1,173,900. The manager of medical services will also have a medical officer or a registrar that's rotating through a hospital who earns 858,711. This registrar or medical officer grade 1 earns almost the same as a hospital manager who has at minimum at least 10 years of experience. At a regional or tertiary hospital, the hospital manager is a level 13 salary. It's 1,057,326. The senior manager that reports to the hospital manager earns 500,000 Rand more at 1,512,000. The senior manager who has a specialist not reporting to him but reporting to a head of clinical unit and a medical officer also not reporting directly to the senior manager, which means it's about 2 levels down, earns more than the hospital manager. A hospital manager on level 14, that is a central hospital, who has a senior manager or even a general manager reporting to him or her, earns between 300 to 600,000 rands less than his subordinates. The clinical manager, who reports to the head of clinical unit, also 2 levels below the senior manager or general manager, and the medical officer grade 3 or specialist grade 2 as well, who reports to the head of clinical unit, earns more than the hospital manager. Specialized services, the deputy director general, who has the hospital managers reporting to him or her, also earns less than a senior clinical manager or a specialist grade 3 in a hospital. Finally, the head of department, the chief accounting officer, the CEO of the entire province or CEO of the national office, earns less than the head of clinical department. That salary being 1,978,533 compared to the head of clinical department, specific department, be it orthopedics, be it a physician, be it pediatrics, earns 2,161,416. So to answer the question, do clinicians earn more than the CEO of a hospital or a CEO of the province? The answer is yes. But what drives a person to be a CEO or a clinician is not necessarily money. And the decision is based on individual needs and individual criteria. And I think if you're deciding to choose a career in management or being a clinician or a specialist, you have to weigh your options. So would you consider being a CEO of a hospital now that you know the facts? Thank you for joining me today looking at salaries of medical doctors in the clinical and management field. I'm sure you've now gained a lot of knowledge on both aspects, and you can make a decision on where you want to take your career. If you'd like to leave a comment below, please do. If you like what you heard, press the like button. And if you want to hear more content of this nature, press the subscribe button. Thank you.